Well, a little difficulty there getting started, but we're here. Welcome to Virtual Flight Diaries. My name is John, and this is a tutorial live stream, a gate-to-gate use of the Boeing, the PMDG Boeing 777-300ER. Boy, excuse me. It's been, I only had about 4 hours of sleep, so you'll have to bear with me. And okay, so here we are at Boston, and our flight today is going to be from Boston to Miami. Airtime is about 3 hours, but I picked a longer flight so that I can demonstrate some different things in cruise. So let's get on board and let's get started up. So we're here in the flight deck of the Boeing 777, and we're in a cold and dark state. Now, generally, if you are the pilot arriving into this plane, you would not be given this plane in this state. Generally, it's powered up, or ground power connected. But for demonstration purposes, we're going to power up from cold and dark. Plus, a lot of people like that cold and dark state, so. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do when you get into this flight deck is go to your electronic flight bag. So I'm going to set up. So everything I'm going to be doing today is going to be a normal operations procedure. There's going to be no abnormal. We're going to do an ILS approach to demonstrate how to set that up. So we're going to set the plane up for a normal flight. So the first thing you're going to do is go to electronic flight bag. You're going to request your data from SimBrief. Before you do anything else, this is what you want to do, because everything based on this point forward is going to be based on the fact that you've loaded in your SimBrief flight plan. Okay, so just to take a look at this electronic flight bag for a second, you got your operational flight plan. This is going to be very useful for setting some different things up in the CDU. If you have Navigraph, the next thing you're going to want to do is, just for convenience purposes, is you're going to set up and pin your charts. So our departure is Boston. And we are going to first pin our airport chart. Okay. Then our departure. We're going to be doing the SOX 7 RNAV departure, so we're going to pin that. Then we're going to go to our arrival. So our arrival is our star. We're going to be landing in Miami on the Crystal 2 RNAV arrival. So we're going to pin that. And we're going to be using the ILS 8 right. So we're going to pin that. And then we're going to also pin our airport for Miami too. One other thing for your departure airport is you want to pin the approach just in case you have to return real quick. You have that reference there. So we would be returning on 22 left. We're taking off 22 right, but we're going to be returning 22 left because of the ILS approach. So once that's all pinned up and you have all those things, you can just go to your pin page and you'll have your airports, your departure, your arrival, approaches, and that's it. So it's just a quick reference, just for convenience. One other thing to do if you have the Navigraph is you can update your nav data. I have updated it already. So you can see the valid period is, July 11th to August 7th. And that's what we need for our electronic flight bag for now. So the next thing we're going to do is go to ground operations. We are going to request ground power and the jetway. And since we're not going to be starting up the APU right away, because generally turnarounds for this plane take about 55 minutes, you want to get in the habit of requesting an air conditioning unit as well. Because an hour of burning the APU would really deplete your fuel. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to disarm the doors and open entry to left. The jetway will always connect to the number 2 door with first class forward and then business and economy to the back. And then we can leave it like that, because if you wanted to do a turnaround, which is actually a little better than GSX at the moment, you can do automated ground ops. So what you would do here, I'm not going to do it because I don't think we can shut it off once it's started. The short version takes about 55 minutes, and the long version takes about an hour and a half. So I don't want to take up that time with that. So all you have to do is you turn type. When you press this, it'll go short. It'll give you the options for short and long. And then you would put in your planned fuel, which you can find on your SimBrief operational flight plan. Click OK, and it'll start all the ground services. And they will show up here with time constraints and how long it's going to take. So catering will arrive, maintenance will arrive, potable water, lavatory services, so on and so forth. Fuel truck will arrive, and it'll all show these little bars over here on how much time left for that, as well as an overall time. It's a really cool feature. It just takes too long to demonstrate and stream. So once that's all set up, we're going to power up the plane. But I wanted to show you something really quick. If you wanted to make adjustments to the save states and whatnot with the power off, if you press the menu button and hold it, you get your PMDG menus, setup menus. So then you can go right here, load up your panel states. My normal panel state I have set up is, powered up with the GPU on. You can also go in and do some aircraft options. So I wanted to show you this really quick as well. My settings for equipment. Personally, I allow the glide slope to capture before the localizer. It just can make it a little easier on approaches, because sometimes you're coming in and you don't quite get the glide slope, or don't quite get the localizer captured before the glide slope. And this way, just doing a descending turning in on the ILS, and it just makes life easier. I make sure I have the flight tablets up. I don't touch any of the TCAS stuff. I have These are all default. I changed the cabin sign selector to no electronics because it's generally assumed that there are no smoking on planes anymore. I usually have Wi-Fi on and tail skid protection on. I have the V1 call out for now. These call outs, I have 2500, which lets me know that the altimeter is alive. 1,000 feet, 500 feet on approach because I have it in smart mode. And then it'll call out at my minimum, so I don't need any of this. The call of 100, just so I know that I'm 100 feet, so I can judge it with the threshold. And then 50, 30, 20, 10, and 5, just to give me the countdown for touchdown. And autopilot disconnect I have set to 2 presses. So first press will disconnect the autopilot with the alarm on. The second press of the disconnect will then shut the alarm off. So just 2 presses and you're good. Everything else I have default, and that's that. So displays, I have US operations, some in pounds and Fahrenheit. These are all default. This is all default. Okay, so there's nothing else in there. So options. This is the one last thing I do. Simulation options. Show thrust lever positions. What'll happen is on the engine display, there'll be a little blue line that'll show my position of my thrust levers. Just so I have an idea, if I have to go auto throttle off, I know where my thrust levers are and I can match the current thrust. And that's it for setup. So let's power up. So power up flow, we're going to start over here and work our way up. So this is our electrical panel. We leave the generators on for normal operation. The bus ties to auto, and the APU generator is also on. Turn on the battery. As you can see, battery doesn't really do very much. Can't power up the whole aircraft, so we need the external power. So we're going to turn that on. We're going to go primary first. As soon as you hear that clunk, you can turn the secondary on. After that's powered up, turn on the galley and the cabin power. And as you can see also, it's going to take a while for everything to warm up. So while we're waiting for that, we'll continue on. We'll hold off the ADIRs until we're powered up. The voice recorder can come on. We'll arm the exterior lights. We'll turn the service intercom phone on. And what that does is turns the intercom phone on for the ground services. So you can talk to the pushback guy and so on. Leave passenger oxygen off, which is kind of an automatic. It'll deploy anyway. This is if you want to manually deploy them. Window heat can come on. Ram air turbine will leave guarded. Hydraulics we will leave untouched. For now, the no electronics we're going to put in auto. Passenger signs we're going to leave off because we haven't finished refueling. This is our internal lighting, which we have set up. And we'll just leave it because we're in daylight operations. Landing lights will leave off. Come back to the top. So this is our fire panel. We're going to do a fire test. Just hold that button. Test good. We're going to leave the engine electronic or EEC modes in normal. Start switches will stay in normal. Auto start on. So we're just not going to touch this stuff. Then the fuel jettison, we're going to leave that alone because we don't want to jettison any fuel. As you can see, our screens are powered up with that clunk. Fuel we can leave off for now. Anti-ice will leave in auto. Nav light is on. We don't need any of their taxi lights or strobes at the moment. And then we're going to do an lights test. We'll just go around, make sure all our lights have come on. Everything is all lit up. Looks good. All right. So it's always up, up, down, up. Excuse me. Get a better view here for you. So the flow is this way. Or wait. So the flow is this way. Up, down, up. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go up and we go down. And then we go up again and then down. And then we go back up. So pressurization is all in auto. Packs we leave on and auto. Or the bleed, yeah, the bleed air for the packs. Everything is left in auto. Equipment cooling is auto. The gasper switch we leave on. That's the nozzles above each passenger seat so they can get some air. And that's it for our overhead panel before start flow. So the next one we're going to go is this panel. So we're going to turn on our flight directors. We're going to set up our initial altitude since we're taking off the SOX 7. Our first altitude is going to be 5,000 feet. Just so you know, when it's in auto, it's in hundreds. You just click it over to that, you can get thousands. And then we come across here, make sure everything is all right. Looks good. We'll come down, we'll hit our FMC to get that started. We just check our data. We know we're good, we updated it. And then we go over to position. Come down here. Make sure our comms are all set and everything looks good. And then we'll set up our transponder. Since we're squawking without any ATC, it'll be 2000. So we're in the United States. And we set. Okay. So the next thing, after you've gone through your flows, you're going to go up here and turn on the ADIRs. That's this button right here. And that's it. So if anyone's used to the 737, there's three nav switches up here. This is condensed down to just one switch. So that's going to take a minute. You can see here 9 minutes to align. So once the alignment starts, we can come down to the FMC, or I should say the CDU, which is powered by the FMC, which makes up the FMS. Yes, the 777 is very automated. It's like a hybrid between the 737 and the 787. Makes for very easy operations. So the next step, once we have the ADIRs powering up and our IRSs are aligning, we come down here and we're going to set our position. So also, unlike the 737, where you had to go to another page, pick up the position, and come back to the main page, our GPS position is conveniently placed on page 1. So once that's in, we can go to route. But we still have to maintain the Boeing flight deck feel. Yes. Yes, we can't change that. All right, so the routes page. So remember when we first came into the cockpit, I had you load the SimBrief flight plan. This is going to make things easy at this stage. So we're going to put in our flight number just for reference. It's not a real world flight number, but just a placeholder that I use. Then we're going to go to route request. As you can see, because we loaded our SimBrief flight plan, the route is already available, so we can just have it load. Now, if we were doing the full turnaround, set payload, if you were to click on it, you'll get a message saying in turnaround mode or something like that it's disabled, because it's loading the payload and the fuel through the turnaround page. But we're going to do a fast one, so we could just set payload and it'll automatically put our payload in, and we can set our fuel and it'll automatically load that as well. That's for a nice quick setup. Next one, we're going to go to select route. So that's going to be requesting our route from SimBrief. Pardon me, throat's getting a little dry. You get a little chime that everything's loading up. Once all the messages are done, you just hit load. Clear all those messages up. And once everything's loaded up, you hit activate and execute. And now our flight plan is in the computer. So the next step is going to be to set up our departures and arrivals. So it'll automatically start with departures. So if we look at our flight plan, we're departing runway 22 right. So we're going to always go runway first, then our star, our SID. So we just go to the next page, look for 22 right. There we go. Once that's in, then we're going to look for our SID. We're going on the SOC 7. So we'll load that up. There's no transition. Once that's all in and it looks good to you, you hit execute and it'll activate that departure. Next, we'll click on the departure arrivals index again. You'll see our arrival for Miami. And if we look at our flight plan, we're expecting 08 right ILS with the DHP transition and the Crystal 2 arrival with the Debriel. I guess that's how you go with that transition. So once again, just like with the other page, we look to see everything looks good and we'll hit execute. And that's in the system now. So then after that, we go to legs. And we're going to review our legs page. So you just flip it over to plan, PLN, and the legs page comes up, and an extra button here shows up called step, and we can just step through each leg of our flight plan to make sure it looks good. We're looking for no breaks, no odd turns. We're trying to see if it looks like our map that we got with our operational flight plan. There's our approach. So at first you're going to say, oh, that looks odd. Well, what we got here is actually our missed approach already in the system. So you can see here, it's going to, when we go to Tupac, it's going to want us to turn us in. So what we're going to do here is just reviewing it. We're going to, I'll show you. We're going to want to come out to here and turn in. But also, so there's two things going on here. If we are given the hold at Chrome, then we can turn in a Tupac to DHP, which is our transition, and it'll fly us down to the hold. If we don't have the hold, another option, we could come in and just go heading mode, bring it in to 3,000 feet, we can turn into Copra, and then we can land. So there's a couple options here. We'll see how things are going. We don't have ATC, so we're probably not going to get the hold. So I'll probably have us at 3,000 feet at Tupac, and then we'll just set up for the turn in for the ILS approach there. So once you've gone through your legs, you can continue on with the rest of the stuff. So we're going to hit the route button to bring us to the route page, and then we're going to go to perf init. Since everything is already loaded, our fuel and passengers, you can actually go up here real quick and turn on our seatbelt signs because we're all loaded up. Hold on one second. I'm getting a phone call I have to take. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I have some plumbing problems, so that was the plumber. Anyway, so where was I? Okay, so setting up the perf init page. Since we have all our fuel and passengers on board, we can just start populating our weights and balance. So fuel is already calculated. If you just click on this, the zero fuel weight will show up. So you're going to just click on it twice. It'll populate the whole thing. You can cross-reference it with your OFP. So you can go to electronic plate bag, go to your OFP, and there's a click spot over here. That'll bring the tablet down by your CDU. So now we look for our planned fuel. We have 69.8. We're 69.7 is required, so we're good. And then we can look at our weights. So cargo payload, so zero fuel weight is 445.6, and our gross weight is 514.4, and it's within limits. So our max is this. So we're good. So we can just put the tablet back over here just by clicking. There's also another click spot up here on the windshield. I don't like it there because I like looking out the windshield, so I usually keep it here. So once that's all in and everything checks out, just hit accept and it'll put it in the system. So we have a cruise altitude of cruise altitude of 36,000 feet. We can go here to the VNAV page real quick, and I want to show you something. That's our recommended cruise altitude. It'll automatically put it in with a step climb up to 3,800 feet, which is our filed altitude. I'll get into more of this on cruise, but I just wanted to show you this real quick. So back to our routes page. So I'm going to set up the takeoff. So we're on the takeoff reference page. So that's where we go back to our tablet. Okay. And we're going to go to the performance tool. This is going to be very handy in figuring out what we need to do to set up our takeoff. Actually, we need to go back to thrust limit real quick. All right, so takeoff. So we're going to select our runway. We're going to runway 22 right. Now, these General Electric 90-115 engines are very powerful. And if we're not heavy, toga is just too much. You're going to blow through your speed. You're going to be going too fast. So I leave it at optimum. Okay. So we're going to import our weights from the aircraft. We have no anti-ice, and our AC configuration is auto. But we're going to leave it on auto. So you can either do PAX off takeoff, which would be, toga PAX off, would give us the full 230,000 pounds of thrust total. Or you can actually run the PAX to the APU to run the PAX. We're just leaving it on auto because we're going to be running PAX on optimum takeoff. We'll import our weather and then we calculate. So you can see here it's got us flaps 5, We're going to be using takeoff 2, and I'll set climb 2 as well with a select temperature of 44. So we're going to go here. So how you want to set this up is we're going to do the takeoff climb configuration first and then put in our select. You can see our N1 is 90.6%. We go over here to confirm it. It's 90.3, it's within limits. 0.3 is definitely within limits. So now we go to takeoff. We're going to go flaps 5. Our CG is in, so trim is 5%. 4.87 is also within limits. So the computer is calculating what we have on board based on what the FMC is giving it. So it can be a little off, but you can see that it's well within limits. And then once we turn on the hydraulics, we can set the trim up to trim 5. All right, so we're going to go back over here. We're going to look at V1, VR, and V2. So look over here, we're 51, 54, 60, 51, 54, 60. Once it's good, we've confirmed that. We load that into the system. And that's it. Our CDU is set up. So now, after our CDU is set up, we're going to go over here and do our status pages. We're going to look. This is our electric. We have our ground power on. Our GPU, our APU is off. That looks good. It's all in the green. Now look at our hydraulic system. You just go through here. Look to see that we have our hydraulic system is shut off, but we have fluid, so we're good. Fuel. We are loaded and balanced. Look and see. We also don't have any fuel in our center tank. And that all these numbers are congruent with our flight plan. Air, we're on air conditioning, so we're not going to we're on external air conditioning. So I don't see, we're not going to see it activated here, not until our APU air is on. Our door status, we have entry level 1 on because we have the jetway attached. This is our gear page. This will tell us our brake temperatures. And then flight controls. We don't have any hydraulics on, so this is not going to display. But this is where it's most important, is the checklist. So we're going to do our pre-flight checklist here. Oxygen tested. Flight instruments are 281 with a altimeter set. So that's good. And then we can turn our parking brake on now. You see parking brake automatically populated. And some of these checklists will automatically populate if the conditions are right. So that's our pre-flight checklist. So we're going to hit normal, which will go to our before start checklist, which is to go. And then we're going to go back to our status page and fire up our APU. So the APU switch is up here, and we're just going to flick it over to start. It'll automatically start drawing from the forward fuel tank. Then we can go down here to our status page and monitor the APU start. You can see that coming up. So we just monitor everything. It takes a minute. Oil pressure is good. And then we can look at our crew oxygen, which is also good at this time. And we're at 100%. You can hear the air come on. Then we can come back up here. Now you'll see when the APU came on, it automatically shut off our secondary power supply because the APU generator is now supplying power, so we don't need it all. So we just disconnect that. Our APU pack has been on because everything is auto over here. It'll also be left on for, in the packs we won't have to shut off for start because everything is automatic, almost like an Airbus. So I'm going to go back to ground ops. Go to our ground connection. We're going to disconnect the ground power. We're going to disconnect our air conditioning unit. Go to our door managements page and we're going to secure up our doors and then just double check that everything, if everything says open, that means they're closed. It's kind of like backwards a little bit. So once that door is closed, we can then go back to ground connections, and then we're going to disconnect our jetway, and we're going to get ready to push back and start up the engines. So our jetway is clear. Go back to door management. We're going to arm all the slides. Just double check that all our ground vehicles are clear. And our parking brake is on. So we're going to remove the chocks. Okay, so then we're going to go back to the checklist and do our before start. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, with no questions, we're going to continue on. So we're going to do our flows just to set everything up here. So we have our APU on, all our power is on. These will stay in the off position because these are engine driven and our engines are currently shut off. So now we're going to get clearance from the ground crew and let everyone know we're going to be powering up our hydraulics. And the way to do that, we're going to start with this one first. We're going to turn that on. To auto. We're going to go this way around in a counterclockwise motion. And this way, everything is activated and there's no cross balance of hydraulic fluid. Go down here. Those signs are on. We're going to keep our landing lights off. Just going to come up here. We're going to turn on our fuel pumps. We're going to go left side and then right side. We have no fuel in the center pump, so they stay off. If you had less than 10,000 pounds of fuel in the center tanks, these would remain off until after takeoff. I'm not sure why that is. I've seen some real 777 pilots, and that's what they said. I believe it has to do with how the pumps operate. So I'm going to come down here. We're starting up our engines. I'm going to turn our beacon on. Let everybody know that we're getting ready to start. Leave that off. And then we don't touch this panel at all because everything is in an auto position for normal flight operations. Okay. So we'll come over here, make sure that everything's set the way we want it. Going to leave the auto throttle armed. You're going to leave the auto throttle actually armed this entire flight from takeoff to landing. So we're not going to even touch the auto throttle for normal flight. So our V2 is 160. We're going to go V2 plus 20 for our takeoff. I'm going to set that to 180. And then we're going to turn on our LNAV and arm them. Here we're going to set our runway heading, just in case we have an autopilot failure. And we set the altitude earlier. I'm going to make sure our flight directors are on and everything looks good. So I'm going to do our before start checklist. Flight deck door is closed and locked. So that checks. MCP, V2 plus 20, 180, heading track 216, altitudes 5,000 set, so that's good. Our takeoff speeds, V1, 51, 54, and 60. That checks. Our CDU preflight is complete. And then we're going to set our trims. So it'll be 5 units, 0 and 0. So that means rudder and aileron trim is 0. So then we're going to go down here. And this is our pitch trim. Right here, we're going to do nose down. And we're going to bring that back to just hold it till we hit 5 and then let go. Our trim is set. Taxi and takeoff briefing is complete. That's our before start checklist. Next is for taxi to go. So we're going to come up here and put our engine display on for startup. And then I'm going to call the tug with GSX. Hopefully this works. So just look at our status page. We can clear that.
Hello, Captain. We're ready for pushback.
So when we're taxiing and judging our pushback and everything like that, we got to remember that this is 242 feet long
Bypass pin inserted.
with 200 feet of wingspan. So if just to put it in perspective, this is like we're taxiing around 1 square acre of plane if you put a box around it. So, you know, you can build a little house, picket fence, 2-car garage, and that's a lot of area. So when you judge your pushback, you're gonna want to make sure you have all those clearances, and then with taxi, you're gonna want to make sure you have, you know, clearances too, because so you're sitting up here, your gear is back here. So these are the things you want to keep in mind. So we're going to put our nose right, tail left, because we're going to 2-2. So release the parking brakes. You can
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
So I just released the parking brakes by, I have it in simple mode, so I just had to press the parking brake, or press the brakes, and it released. Alright, so now we're pushing back so we can do our engine startup. So we're going to go up here. Everything's left in automatic. So we're going to start engine 2. Just going to click it over to start. We're going to watch once this starts to rise, we can click the fuel right on. Then we're just going to monitor our oil pressures coming up. Our oil temperature is in good. And we're just going to check the vibrations to make sure that we don't over vibrate or there's any problems in startup. The starter will automatically cut out once it's stabilized. Once it's stabilized, we can go to engine 1. Once we got a movement in the dial, we can just go right to our fuel control and turn that on.
Set parking brakes.
Waiting your confirmation for good engine start.
So the reason I have it in simple mode for parking is because I have a conflict. I currently don't have rudder pedals, so it wasn't working right for me
Cockpit to ground.
without that.
Good engine start. You can disconnect.
Unlocking gear.
Alright, we have 2 good engine starts. We're disconnecting the tug, so we're going to go to our after start checklist here. Okay. See here. Tire pressure condition. One of or more tire pressures are not normal. So let's let's check that out. So we'll go to the gear page.
Bypass has been removed. Left is clear. Right is clear.
That's odd. You know what? I don't know. I didn't check for updates. I think there was a bug that it wasn't showing proper tire pressure. All right. So we're going to go back to our checklist page. Before taxi, I know there was an update that fixed, there was something wrong with the tire pressure. And I haven't updated PMDG yet, so I think that's what our problem is. So that's just a bug. All right, so anti-ice is not required. We'll check the recall. That's this button here. We're going to get that tire pressure warning. Let me go to check something real quick. Active failures, none. So yeah, it's a bug. I'm going to leave it at that one. Oh, and a good practice is to put this one on the legs page. So we'll go to FMC. So Copilot would have the legs, while the captain would have the takeoff reference. All right, recall check, auto brake, RTO. So this is the auto brake here. Rejected takeoff. That's what RTO stands for. Flight controls check. Flight controls free and clear. We can do that by going to the flight control page as well. So now we have the hydraulics up. So we can full forward, full aft, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, rudder check, full right, full left, neutral. Flight control check complete. Back to checklist. And our ground equipment is clear. After start checks. So got a thing. So next is before takeoff. Alright, so we're going to set our flaps to 5 because that's our takeoff flaps. And this is going to automatically populate once flaps 5 goes there. So we're going to turn on the run up. So any of these grouped lights, there's a click spot right at the top to turn them all on at the same time, because you wouldn't have to click these individually. If you're in the real aircraft, you would just grab them with your hands and pull them down. So there's a click spot right here. And then our taxi light can come on. And you can see our before takeoff checklist has automatically populated with the flaps 5. Alright, so let's get taxiing. So if we review our chart, we're going to do Alpha to November to November 2 for takeoff. 22 right. So we're going to release our parking brake. And we're going to start taxiing. You're going to see, you don't need much power to get this thing rolling. These engines are big. Just a little bump up on the throttle, and you see we're already starting to roll. So with taxiing here, one, you got to remember your wings are 200 feet out each side. So you want to keep clearance. And then when turning onto taxiways and runway to center line it, you're going to want to bring this, you're going to want to overshoot and bring that center line of the taxiway or runway to these posts here before you start your turn. That's it. I'm running at idle and it's just rolling forward. You don't want to get too fast. I mean, I think you can do up to 30 on the straightaway, but you're not going to be able to turn this thing at anything about 10. So if you follow all these steps, and you can always come back to this live stream and fast forward, pause. It's kind of like why I wanted to do it in this kind of format, so you can go over all these steps as you go through your aircraft. Because you do all these steps in the order I've done them, you'll be all set up. You'll be able to fly this thing on a flight. So our cabin call is ready. So like I said, we're going to come around here. Slow down just a little bit for our turn. So we're going to look over here and we're going to mark where that comes back to that post, just like that, and then we're going to start our turn. And you can see our back tires did not leave the taxiway. And we're all lined up. So you want to put the view reference here is you want to put the line between the primary flight display and the nav display, just a little to the nav display, and that'll put you center line. And we just keep it nice and slow. We can bump it up just a little bit. Give it a little throttle. Nice, easy, slow taxi. And chill. You keep it slow. You keep it under 15. You won't have any problems taxiing this thing. But if you're online, VATSIM and stuff like that, you just got to remember how big you are so that you don't clip anybody. So before takeoff checklist is complete. So the next checklist is the after takeoff, which is also going to auto-populate for us. So we're going to take off, we're going to climb out. Once we get into cruise, I'm going to show you the auto step climb and auto time compression function, which comes in very handy for those long hauls, cutting them down. It'll cut, it's like 14-hour flight from JFK to Dubai, and we can cut that down into a couple hours, a few hours, so you don't have to spend 14 hours of your day in cruise. All right, we're going to go to N2. So we're just going to slow down a little bit and bring it under 10 for the turn. And remember, you're going to want to overshoot. Going to bring that back to the window post and then crank it over. You have to remember, you got to remember that, I think it's like something like 13, 14 feet behind you is the nose gear. You're sitting out there over the nose gear. All right. Now we want to bring it to the takeoff line and stop. Leave it at idle. So because of our flight to 69,000 pounds of fuel is actually very light. So we can click right here, turns on all our landing lights, turn on our strobes, double check that our signs are on. Just a quick flow glance, make sure everything is not yellow. All this is set up right. I'm just doing a quick glance. All right. So for takeoff, we're going to go to our engines page, so everything is there for us. And we're going to line up on the runway. Now let's see if I can get this line up good. Keep it slow. Bring that center line back to that middle post in the window. And we'll come to a stop and see how I look. Almost, just a little off. Just so you can get a picture of. So I was a little wrong. So you want to place the center line over your primary flight display. All right. So we're going to hold on to the brake. We're going to bring our power up to 50%. So that's just past this EGT line, roughly 50%. So we're looking for stabilized. And you guys can see what I was talking about with that throttle position line. Lets us know where the throttle is. It's a great reference. I don't believe that exists in the real plane, but it's great that they modeled it here. All right, once we're at 50% and stabilized, the toga button is the PMDG favorite little screw button here that we press. I have it keybound, but I'm going to demonstrate the press here. Once that's set, we're going to keep it centerline.
knots.
80 knots check. So you're going to want to take off, you're going to want to pull back just evenly, and that keeps us at 1 degree every 2 seconds, so we don't do a tail strike. So just nice, easy pullback. Don't be afraid of it. It takes a little bit, and then you just want a steady pull all the way up, following the flight director. That's going to take us up to 20%, or 20 degrees, I should say. We're off the ground. Gear can come up. Autopilot can be engaged. Our auto throttle is going to kick in and take us to climb thrust. So we're past the 5 degree mark, so we can bring the flaps up. Bring the flaps up to 1. And we're going to turn out on our SID. Our flaps up speed is well below 250 knots. Sometimes if you're really heavy, you're going to need to go above 250, below 10,000. And ATC would recognize that and give you permission to do so. So it's going to take us up to 250 knots, so flaps are up. Landing lights can come off. Wait, no, landing lights stay on. Taxi lights can come off. We just double check. We have no vibration warnings. Everything looks good. We can then shut that off. That's it. That's our climb out. So we're going to make sure we're above 3,000 at Burrow. And then once we pass Burrow, we're going to start our climb out to flight level 360. You could hand fly this. This is actually really nice to hand fly. It's fly by wire, and although it's not as precise as the Airbus in the direct law and or the normal law type stuff where you can just set it and let go of the stick and it'll stay. Boeing actually modeled their fly by wire to be more of an airplane feel. But it does, if you keep the stick in a certain position, or keep the yoke in a certain position, it'll stay right where you want it to go. So climb out is hand flying the climb out is very easy. Alright, so we're past Burrow, so we can climb up to, we're going to send ourselves up to flight level 360. So I'm going to go into thousands, or it'll take us forever. And then we just push the button. And it'll start climbing out. So we'll check our after takeoff checklist. Landing gear up, flaps are up, after takeoff's complete. Auto brake automatically set to the off position. And we're prepared for our flight. Now we're just going to climb up to 36,000 feet, and then I'm going to engage the auto time compression, which is modeled very well in this plane. It's one of the most stable auto time compressions that I've ever seen, even with other PMDG aircraft. Very smooth. And that's everything. So we can get off this page. We can go to our electronic flight bag. To our Navigraph, we can go to our go to the home page, and we can get a idea of our plane position on the route. So we can lock our location, switch our maps around to different navigation maps. This is the PMDG map. Since I have Navigraph, we can go with, this is the PMDG map. Since I have Navigraph, we can go with this map. And then you can zoom in, zoom out. It's very convenient. And now we could go full screen since we don't need our charts yet. Yeah, and I got some lag going on. Yeah, it seems like I got some internet problems. That's not good. Hold on a second. I got some technical difficulties. You might be like experiencing buffering. That's not good. Get to see my settings. I don't want this to be a slideshow for you guys. Alright, so we're just in the climb out. Just hold on a second. I'll be right back.